Party people, it's Wake and Rake time, episode 8. It's April 16th. We got a hell of a series coming up. Battle of Southern California, Dodgers-Padres. I mean, we've really been looking forward to this since really for a year. I mean, they had the playoff series last year, and the Dodgers ended up rolling over the Padres because the Padres didn't have their starting pitching. And now, to set us all up for this upcoming series, we got my boy Will Middlebrooks, as always. And then we got Alanna Rizzo, our Dodgers expertise. She spent over 7 years with Sportsnet LA, Dodgers reporter. Now she's back at MLB Network, where she was before. Alanna, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Happy to be with you guys.
This is great because Will played for the Padres. Alanna was with the Dodgers for 7 years. So we already got some feuds going. So, I mean, this is going to be a good time, I think.
Yeah, no question about it. It'll be interesting to see how this series plays out. I know that this one's been circled on the calendar for a lot of people for a while.
Yeah, and I know we're going to get to the question of, is this a rivalry later on, but this is the beginning of the rivalry. We can't call it that yet. You know what? We can just talk about this right now, Danny. All right.
That's
I know
fine.
You want to talk about this last, but I want to talk about it now.
Hold on.
This is not, everyone's talking about this being a rivalry. This is not a rivalry yet. Padres haven't beat the Dodgers. They're still little brother. And now on paper, it's a rivalry. I get that. For the fans, it's a rivalry because there's hope. There hasn't been a lot of that for the Padres much the past, 20 years. So on paper, it's a rivalry. But until the Padres prove that they can physically beat up on the Dodgers a little bit, who are, 10-2, 11-2 right now?
Yeah, 10-2. And you know what? I agree with you. I think if the Padres can start consistently beating the Dodgers, and if the Padres fans can take back Petco Park when the Dodgers play in San Diego, I think then we can start to consider it more of a rivalry. But right now, I still think, just based on history, the rivalry is Giants-Dodgers, even though the Giants aren't where they have been in the past. I'm excited that San Diego is going to provide some competition in the NL West this year. I think it'll be good for the Dodgers. I think it'll be good for the fans. I think it'll be good for baseball, but I'm in agreement with Will that it's not a rivalry yet.
So two of the best teams in the NL are, depending on traffic, 2 hours away from each other. That's amazing for the fan bases. And yeah, like Petco Park, like you said, they got to take that back. It didn't matter if it was a Wednesday getaway day game. It was packed and it looked like my shirt. And that is not, at the time, that was not the Padres colors. All right. It was Dodger blue. It wasn't our camo brown or whatever color they are, mustard, whatever they are this year. It wasn't that. It was Dodgers fans. It felt like an away game. It was really weird, actually.
Yeah. I think San Diego has such an amazing city. So I think a lot of folks want to go down there and walk around the gas lamp district and have a good time. And it's such a walkable city. And it's like, you're right there on top of the park, great bars, great restaurants. It was a weekend getaway, or even a weekday series that they'd go down there. And, there's Dodgers fans all over the country, all over the world, really. It's a very international team, as you guys know. But I get in trouble on Twitter from Padres fans that are blowing me up because I call it Dodger Stadium South, but it's Dodger Stadium South. And until I can see some consistent series there where it's the majority of fans or Padres fans, to me, it's going to continue to be Dodger Stadium South.
There's more. I feel like there's more. Sorry, Danny. I know you want to talk so bad. This is on me. Yeah. See you open your mouth and I just have to sneak in. Padres fans, it's very easy. Now, I'm not saying there aren't loyal fans, but there's much more loyal Dodger fans. And now that's based off of the success they've had. Padres haven't had a ton of success, and San Diego is not known for baseball. It's known for the beach and surfing and food, the food scene, all that. So it's not hard for people to not be diehard fans.
LA is not?
That's what I said. The history of winning makes more loyal fans, because people like to be bandwagon fans. You don't want to be a fan of a terrible team. No, that's really tough to do. Now, there's still those fans in San Diego who have been through the ups and downs, a lot of downs with them. Those are the loyal fans, and those are the little section of Padres shirts you see during the home games when you play the Dodgers. But yeah, I mean, so I really see you being more 50-50 this year. I don't know what the capacity rules are there in California either. So we'll see
Yeah,
how packed
California
it'll be.
is not as open. I mean, I think Dodger Stadium now has about 15,000 fans or whatever, and they have a capacity of 56,000. So,
Right.
California, it's gonna take a bit to get like your home state of Texas, where it's just a big free for all.
Bloodbath.
The
Yeah, they
Rangers
don't-
are 100%, the Astros are 50%. California is gonna take a bit to get there.
yeah.
Yeah, and last I checked too, Padre fans were basically crossing out any Dodger fan that was trying to buy a ticket to, whether it's StubHub or any of these third-party apps. Somehow they're monitored. They're trying to get only Padres fans in that ballpark.
And I like that. There's something to be said for that. I mean, it's maybe it's time that this does become a rivalry. Will saying it's just, 2 hours down the way on I-5 or whatever to get to San Diego from LA. And that's great. And I know that some of the Dodgers, or excuse me, the Padres executives were saying, we're going to give our Padres fan base, some incentive not to sell the Dodgers fans. I'm fine with that. I think it's great. But you know what? It doesn't matter if it's 100% Padres fans or 100% Dodgers fans. If the team on the field can't continue to make it a rivalry, as far as I'm concerned, it's not yet.
Rivalry games. So the word rivalry, like I played in Boston versus New York, right? That's a very well-known rivalry in sports, maybe one of the biggest. It's not as intense between the players as it is between the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's bigger for the fans. Whether you're going to school that day wearing your Padre stuff or your Dodger stuff, making fun of your friends, like whatever, like that's what it's about. The players, you think about it, you care. That game holds a little more weight because of that, but it's because you don't want to let your fans down. It's not because it's not like how it used to be where you're like, I hate those guys, because there's so much turnover in the game now.
Exactly.
No one's really on the same team. There's not the Dustin Pedroias and the Derek Jeters. That you don't have those anymore. With free agency and the money that's being thrown around, it just doesn't happen. So the rivalries within the teams isn't as intense.
I think the players can certainly feed off of it, though. Like you can feel the energy in the crowd. Like for example, Trent Grisham last year, there wasn't fans in the stands, but he heard Dave Roberts in the other dugout kind of barking a little bit because of the bat flip against Kershaw. That kind of feed, like that energy, you can feel it from within. So I think it made me mean more to fans, but I think the players can kind of feel the vibrations coming from
Absolutely. You're right.
Alanna, let me ask you, Andrew Friedman touched on it when he signed Trevor Bauer. They asked him, I don't remember who asked the question, but they basically said, are you paying attention to what San Diego's doing? And he was honest, and he said it's impossible to ignore what they've been doing. How about player-wise? You have relationships with different players, and you were, within that clubhouse and within those players really a lot last year. How much are they paying attention to the guys 2 hours south on the I-5?
Well, I think, the Dodgers, well, really any team that is in it to win it and isn't purposely tanking, is a team that you have to pay attention. And San Diego has a lot of tremendous players. And we always talk about, that cliche of winning the offseason. So when Preller goes out and signs the universe and some really, really good players, of course, you're paying attention to what's happening. Again, you have a World Series team that is so unbelievably stacked, with the exception of two subtractions in Jock Peterson to the Cubs and Kike Hernandez to the Boston Red Sox, right? So you have pretty much your same core of guys. So for him to be able to, again, get David Price back, and if David Price is pitching out of your bullpen, it's pretty incredible starting rotation, right? So you get Trevor Bauer. So you have 3 Cy Young Award winners in your pitching staff, top to bottom, between 2 in the rotation and 1 in the bullpen. So Andrew Friedman, of course, he's paying attention to what the other teams, particularly in his division, are doing. I'm not certain, though, that he's necessarily worried about the Padres. I think he's worried about making sure that the Dodgers get to the postseason, and are they built to win in October? And I think they've shown that, they are. And adding Trevor Bauer to, a 3-year, $102 million deal is only going to make them better if he can continue to pitch the way that he did in his Cy Young year with Cincinnati. And so far, in 3 starts, I'd say it's worth the, 3-year, $102 million when he has the opportunity to opt out after the first year. So the whole point is to get back to where they were last year and prove that a 60-game season wasn't a fluke. And I don't buy that there's an asterisk, because having gone through it last year with them, I think it's so much harder to win in a pandemic than a non-pandemic. And the other 29 teams that didn't win it would take it in a heartbeat. So I don't buy that asterisk stuff, but it's a very long-winded answer to your short question. Is he paying attention? Of course, but he's more worried about his own club than, what the rest of the league is doing.
I'm glad you brought up Bauer. Let's talk pitching matchups here, because we got some good ones coming up. And keep in mind, you mentioned Trevor Bauer. He's really struggled against the Padres in his career. For whatever reason, that's like his kryptonite. His ERA is over his career is like up over 5. I think he's 0-3. I don't have his numbers right in front of me, but he's acknowledged that too. And Machado has just raked off him. And Bauer's made some fun with it on Twitter, and they're having fun back and forth. But it should be interesting. So right now, the way it lines up, now these could change. These are projected. It's Walker Buehler versus Ryan Weathers. Ryan Weathers, 21-year-old, is going to be making his first career start on Friday. Yu Darvish versus Clayton Kershaw on Saturday. Trevor Bauer, Blake Snell on Sunday. Snell's coming off of a really rough start against Pittsburgh. He was unable to make it out of the first inning. But nonetheless, those are, 5 out of the 6, not including Ryan Weathers, who's expected to be an absolute stud, but he's only 21 years old. Those are 5 really star pitchers right there. So these are going to be some really good pitching matchups this weekend.
Yeah. No, I don't know who you're asking. I don't know if you're talking to me or Alanna, but she just talked, so I'll give her a break.
Well, you guys stole the show for the first 10 minutes of this episode, and I was just chilling back. So I'm trying to make up for it here.
Yeah, I mean, I think people look at Weathers, Buehler, and they think, oh, no, that's big advantage Dodgers. I don't know. This kid's arm is electric, and I didn't know he was only 21. I thought he was 25. That's insane. So that's huge for them too. I'm just looking at the matchups and thinking advantage here. I like Kershaw. I feel like Kershaw is going to pitch till he's 50. I know.
People think he's old. He's only 32.
He's my
33.
age.
He's 33, I think.
He's 33.
33.
Yeah, he graduated. So
because he has the same birthday as my grandmother. I always remember Kershaw.
I'm glad you brought that up, Alanna. So I had to do some research on you beforehand to try and be a good host. We share the same birthday, August 8th, by the way.
Wow! Oh, the two of us are the coolest on
You almost forgot to bring that up.
I almost
here's another funny story, and then we can get back to Dodgers-Padres. So everybody asks me if I'm related to Anthony Rizzo. And technically I am related to Anthony Rizzo because my grandfather, my father, my brother, and my nephew are all named Anthony Rizzo. So a technicality is, yes, I'm related to Anthony Rizzo. However, the Anthony Rizzo of the Cubs is also August 8th.
Oh,
we have the same birthday.
No way.
I'm a little bit older than him and a lot poorer than him. We have the same birthday. Yes. So I am kind of related to Anthony.
That's cool. That's a cool story, though. That's really cool.
I knew. That's great.
All right, Danny. What do you want now? What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk head to head. Okay, so I'm going to play mediator here. I'm going to rely on you guys. This is kind of look, Brooksy played for the Padres. Alanna was a reporter for the Dodgers. This is, head to head. So we're going to go one by one through each category. Each of you are going to tell me which of these two teams has the advantage going into the series. Now, keep in mind, Dinelson Lamet's on the IL. Fernando Tatis is expected to return on Friday. That's the latest news. We don't know that for certain. But for the sake of the argument, consider the teams that they have on the field going in this weekend. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Dinelson Lamet because he's not going to be out there likely. So for the sake of the argument, let's worry about the teams that are actually going to be on the field. So the first one, and I'll start with Alanna here because she is our guest. Who has the better offensive lineup between the Dodgers and the Padres going into this series?
All right. So is Fernando Tatis playing?
Assuming Fernando Tatis
I think he's back.
He is expected.
Top to bottom, I'm still going to say the Dodgers, only because if you're all the way down to the catching spot, I would take Will Smith. I mean, if you think of your catcher as your weakest link offensively, I'd still take Will Smith.
Agreed.
Now, Belly's not in the lineup. He's still not going to be in the lineup. So you're missing something there. But all of a sudden, Zach McKinstry. I mean, you have Mookie Betts, who was out of the lineup for 4 or 5 games with lower back stiffness. He's back now, and he hit a home run. So in his absence, you have Zach McKinstry, who comes out of Central Michigan, 33rd round, never hit a home run in Central Michigan, and all of a sudden is Babe Ruth. So top to bottom, I'm still going to take the Dodgers, despite the fact that the Padres, I think, with if Fernando Tatis is back, which you don't know how his shoulder is going to respond. Cody Bellinger had the same exact problem with the pop in, pop out, pop in, pop out.
Yeah, the only high five in the playoffs, right?
High five after the home run of the playoffs, and he had to have off-season surgery. And I'm thinking that's probably the direction that Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to have to go. So even if Tatis Jr. is back in the lineup, obviously we know what Manny Machado can do. He drove in 3 runs on Thursday. So we know what Machado can do. Eric Hosmer, obviously, Will Myers, if he's helped, I'm still going with the Dodgers top to bottom with Seager, Turner. Turner is in any situation. I want Turner at the plate in any situation. So I'll take the Dodgers lineup.
So I'm going to echo that. The Dodgers, I mean, they're the best team in baseball. Seager was my pick for NL MVP this year. On every show I've done, Seager's my pick because what he did last year, what he continued in the postseason, even through spring training, even though spring training doesn't matter, he hit 350 in spring training with a bunch of homers. So, and the depth, they just have depth. You miss Mookie, you miss Bellinger, you still go 5-1 during that span. Chris Taylor's playing center field for Mookie. Like, they have depth, they have interchangeable pieces, they have the best starting pitching in baseball. What's going on with Kenley right now? He said he's pitching angry. I read that.
Yeah. He's really good so far.
I can't see him being like angry. He seems so nice to me.
He is a nice guy. Kenley, I think, what bums me more about Kenley than anything is he changed his walkout song. It's no longer California Love. It makes me really sad. He says it's a new beginning for him. So the thing with Kenley is that everyone expects him to be the Kenley Jansen of 2016, 2017, where he's throwing, 97, 98. Everyone knew he was going to throw the cutter. Nobody can hit it. He mixes in a slider. He's dabbling with things in games. He's still like Kershaw has to, these guys, as they get older, have to reinvent themselves, right?
Correct.
And everyone wants to focus so much on the velocity that the second it's down a tick or 2 miles an hour, people are flipping out. So when you talk about Kenley pitching angrily, the other day he comes out and just shoves, and it's a 1-2-3 inning, and all of a sudden you're like, well, welcome back, Kenley. But then the next outing, he has inevitably some traffic on the bases. And it's a little bit more of a nail-biting situation. I think people are so quick to forget that this is still the guy that has the most saves in Dodger history, surpassing Eric Gagne. Is he going to be the same? Are we the same as we were 5 years ago? No. People get older, and you have to reinvent yourself, and you have to readjust. Kershaw's not throwing what he was throwing, but he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's still unbelievably effective. You tell me 29 other teams that wouldn't want Clayton Kershaw in their starting rotation.
Well, this generation, he is the best pitcher during the past 20 years.
No question.
Yeah.
No question. So Kenley, he's still figuring it out. And I give him a lot of credit that, he's a very selfless guy. He doesn't have to pitch in the ninth. Obviously, that's his preference. And Dave, perhaps to a fault, is loyal to Kenley as his closer. And the Dodgers have other arms that can bridge that gap or be their closer. They don't have Pedro Baez anymore, but there are still guys in that bullpen that can do it. So it's tough. You're not going to come out and be Mariano Rivera every single time. You're not going to be Kenley Jansen anymore every single time, but they still have the pieces in place. I mean, ask the Atlanta Braves or Chicago White Sox bullpen right now if they'd like to have Kenley. They'd probably take him, right?
Yeah, of course.
Not to mention Corey Knebel's been a really nice signing for him too. Coming off the free, and he's been and Trinan's looked electric as he did last year.
Dude, Trinan is one of the most uncomfortable at bats I ever had in baseball. Really? I hated facing him because he throws it and you're like, that is right down the middle. And then if you swing or if you take it, you realize how close it gets to your back leg. It's insane the movement he gets. You watch him on TV and you see the movement and you're like, 90, 91, 99, what? Like, that's not supposed to move like that. And as a hitter, it gets there so quick you don't see the movement until you realize where the catcher caught it, or you realize how much you missed it by. It's insane.
I feel like it's Jordan Hicks with a little less velocity, but more movement.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, you guys already, transition into my next question, really. Who's got the leg up when it comes to the bullpen? Because we already talked about the bullpen a little bit already, but when you're looking at San Diego, Emilio Pagan, Drew Pomeranz, Mark Melanson's been very good as their closer.
Right.
Then you go over to Los Angeles. We touched on Kenley Jansen. Blake Trinan's been great. Corey Knebel's been really good. And now you have David Price in that bullpen too. Who's got the leg up going into the series?
You want me to go? I'll go.
Brooksy.
Dodgers. I mean, they're just I'm not gonna. I guess I could say battle tested. I mean, they played in the big games. All these guys, there were their arms in the bullpen last year who pitched in big situations and big games. Yeah, I mean, this is an easy answer for me. And this isn't saying the Padres aren't good. They're very good, but you look at overall stuff, you look at velocity, you look at experience. Dodgers.
And don't forget, you still didn't even have Bruce Dark-Gratterall in your bullpen yet.
Right.
I mean,
that's what my wheels were spinning on that. I was like, where is he?
He's close, I think, but you still have Victor Gonzalez, who pitched some unbelievable outs in the postseason last year.
He's an awkward lefty. Yeah.
And you got Joe Kelly that, there's a lot of guys in that. They may not be like, oh my God, that's like, this vaunted bullpen, but when you put them together collectively, it's pretty impressive. Not to mention, the amount of innings that they likely have to pitch aren't as many perhaps as the Padres bullpen, just because of the starters going, as deep as you can. When you have the starting staff that the Dodgers have, not to take anything away from the Padres by any stretch, they have a great staff. They're just set up. That's disgusting. Like how, it's an abundance of wealth and it's abundant, it's a good problem to have, but they're just set up to succeed.
Yeah. When you look at the luxury tax and go, whatever, you're going to be good. But that's what you have to do to be in the position they're in. You look at the Yankees and they're like, oh, we really want to, stay under, and they're not playing as well. The talent, there's a gap in their starting pitching. There's a gap in their bullpen. If their offense, if they lose a couple guys that get hurt, then there's a gap in their lineup because they lost some depth because they didn't want to spend the money. Well, the Dodgers spend the money and they're going to reap the benefits of that.
I will say this though, too, about the Dodgers. And I understand completely. If you're not a Dodger fan or you're not close to the organization, I understand why this team is easy to hate. I get it. I wasn't a huge fan, honestly, until I started working there, and I have a better understanding of the organization and how they run things and how they go about things. You can have deep pockets. It does not. And Will, you played for, the Red Sox and a very historic team and organization in a city that has demands and expectations. And, you can have deep pockets and you can spend the money. If you're not playing for one another and you're not playing for a team as a collective, it doesn't matter how much money you make. I've covered teams and the 2014 Dodgers was not a team that was built to win. There were so many different me versus team personalities in that clubhouse. And it just doesn't work. And another thing I think the Dodgers are really good at is there are a few teams that can win and develop at the same time. And one thing I give Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers front office credit for is that they have not given away really high-end prospects to get some of these guys in return in trade or being able to sign guys in free agency or, shipping guys off. You still have the Gavin Luxes in your system. You still have the highly touted pitching prospects in your system. So they have the unique ability to win and build and not deplete a farm system.
Mm-hmm. You also made a really good point, and I just want to point out how rare it is to have a combination, have multiple players who are high dollar players, elite players, yet are still team players, like you said.
And Mookie
You've been around the game for a long time. That's so rare to have that almost small market, just team unity. The teams, on those small market teams are like, we're the underdogs and we really got to come together to compete, like the Rays did last year. But they have that mentality with the money they have in the deep pockets as you mentioned. So that's what makes them even better. And they've been able to succeed together for a couple seasons now, which is makes that love and that bond even deeper. So
I mean, you
they're
have
just going to keep getting better and better. They add one piece, and we're going to look up and it's a dynasty, right?
and you have 3 MVPs on the same team.
Dude,
Tell me a team that has 3 MVPs that love each other as much as these guys love each other.
that's a
You
good
know what I
point.
mean?
That's so rare.
And you have Mookie Betts come over, who doesn't need to prove who he is or have anybody accept him. And he fit in and Will, you know him very well. And Danny, I'm not sure if you know Mookie at all. And I didn't have an opportunity to get to know him very well because COVID killed any sort of personal relationships I could have trying to get to know these guys and establishing, a professional relationship with them. But he fit in so well. And it's not like he demanded like on this is my team. I mean, Justin Turner is the captain of the Dodgers, period.
Yep.
And they fit in so well together. And when they're in this bubble in Las Colinas for the postseason, I'm grateful we did not have to travel back and forth, but they're in this bubble in Las Colinas at the Four Seasons for 3 weeks, right? So they had, I mean, it's like college. They're like, it's like dorm life. And it's so strange too, because they're in this hotel with the opposing team. And it's like all the families. And again, with free agency and all these trades and stuff, everybody knows everybody. And, the days are gone where guys play for the same team their entire career, except for Yachty and Waino. But they truly, truly, truly cared about each other. And I think that's so important. So yes, I get the argument that they have a ton of money and blah, 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 and you're going to get the big stars. But if they're not playing for each other, it doesn't make an ounce of difference.
The best teams I ever played on, we hung out off the field all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now at home, it's different. You're at home, you're there with your family, all that. That's
Sure.
family time. But on the road, the 2013, when we won a World Series, after every game, the veterans have suites. They get suites built into their contracts. We call them show suites. Whose show suite are we going to? I mean, there's 10 of us deep, at least every night, just hanging out, talking about the game, playing music, having drinks, just hanging out. And that's how you build that relationship. So that's really cool to hear the Dodgers are that way. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's what pains Red Sox fans so much, is seeing how well Mookie just became. You said Justin Turner's the captain, but he became one of the leaders. I mean,
No question. I mean, he's much more of a quiet leader. I mean, Mookie's very quiet.
Yeah, he's not a vocal guy.
He just goes about his business. He shows up early. He just does his thing. And I don't know if you guys saw this on Thursday, Mookie Betts donated his game day salary to the Players Alliance. So, he's just a class act all the way around, and he just fit in perfcly. So thank you, Boston.
Yeah, he gets it, man. He sees the big picture. He sees what's going on in society, and he knows what he's doing in the sport is bigger than itself. It's about the community that he's in. He's just, man, he's just such a good dude. Boston's gonna chew on that one for a while.
So last category of actual baseball, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about San Diego versus Los Angeles culture. But last one, so you guys both agree that the Dodgers have the better offensive lineup and the better bullpen. Starting rotation, which of the two? We'll start with Alanna. Which of the two has the better starting rotation going into this series?
It's funny, until Musgrove threw that no-hitter. Listen, you have, I'll still take Clayton Kershaw any day of the week. You have Walker Buehler, who has so much confidence, but he has the stuff to back it up. You have Trevor Bauer, you have Dustin May that's throwing 99, 100 miles an hour. And then you have Julio Urias, who he's the 4 in the rotation, but he'd be, a 5 on a lot of teams. And, he threw the final out of the World Series. So plus you have, David Price in your bullpen. You have other guys that can be long men. You can, I always called Ross Stripling, who I know is with the Blue Jays now, the accordion of the Dodgers, because they would stretch him out when they needed to, and they'd smash him back in when they didn't, kind of with Kent, what they did with Kenta Maeda and some other guys too, Alex Wood to a certain extent. Yu Darvish is amazing. Obviously what Joe Musgrove is able to do. Blake Snell has not been the Blake Snell that everybody knows now because of Tampa Bay, but he's an unbelievably solid arm. Chris Paddock had a good outing for them on Thursday. He needs to continue to, these guys need to go deep into games. And if they can do that, they're a very solid rotation, but I mean, call it bias. I just think, based on experience and what these guys can do, I'm still taking the Dodgers rotation.
I can't go against that. I do really like the Padres. I really like the Padres. And adding Joe Musgrove to that mix of good arms, he just never got talked about, right? Because he was coming from playing in Pittsburgh. And then obviously the news of Snell and Darvish is going to overshadow
Right.
that. But yeah, man, the Dodgers are so deep. Like we talk about postseason too. Postseason successes. How do you win in the postseason? You have depth and your rotational depth. That's how you win, especially in a structure like we saw last year with the expansion. Yeah, man, it doesn't let up. They literally have 7 starting pitchers who can beat you. So you can't not pick the Dodgers here.
I think we're all getting a little bit cheated too. Like Alanna mentioned, Belly's not in the lineup. But for the Padres, and Nelson Lamet's not going to be in their rotation. Not to mention Mike Clevenger is out for the year too. So if we're talking about potential 2022 rotations, maybe the Padres would have a little bit more weight.
I agree.
As of right now, I couldn't agree more that Dodgers right now going into this series have the better rotation.
Yeah.
Let's get into culture. This should be fun. We're going to piss off a lot of fans here. Like we have in our San Diego fans hate us they probably didn't make it this far in the podcast, but if they are, they're love us even more now. Who's got
like Alanna? Food? No, we're out.
Probably. I don't doubt it.
Who's got the better food? Los Angeles, San Diego? We'll start with you, Brooksy.
I love San Diego. I know much more about San Diego because I spent a season there. Mm-hmm. But there's this burger place in San Diego. It's called Hodad's.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know Hodad's?
Oh, Hodad's, of course.
Bro, one of my favorite burgers on earth. And I come from like the deep south of like barbecue and like greasy burgers. Hodad's. I envision like if there's a burger place in heaven, it's Hodad's. Hodad's Heaven. That's what it's called.
It's at Petco Park. They have a Hodad's.
Yeah, they put it in the stadium because they were sick of me sending the clubbies out to get it for myself every day. I'm so biased when it comes to food in San Diego because, well, number one, like I said, I just spent more time there. But like the little spots you can go to on the beach, there's so many little small towns that you can like Ocean Beach, Pacific Beach, like those areas you can just go park and walk around all day and just go to places. Oh, I'll stop at the beach. Oh, I'll go get sushi here. There's just so much walkable in San Diego. I think that's what puts it at the top of the list for me.
Yeah, I think it's, you'd be hard pressed to not find amazing food in either city. I think San Diego has incredible breakfast places. Richard Walker and every single baseball player knows about. We always joke that it's Dick Walker's. Everybody knows about Richard Walker's. Cafe 222, the Mission, all of those places right around Petco Park. And I love. If I'm going to a game, as much as I love Dodger Stadium, I just love the fact that you can walk everywhere in San Diego. I love that about a city.
Gas lamp is so cool.
So great. The gas lamp is so great. So I'm going to say for breakfast, San Diego. I lived in Manhattan Beach for 7 years. Well, 5 years. My first 2 years, I was in the middle of the city, but I am a huge fan of the Strand House in Manhattan Beach. Really, really good. You're not gonna go wrong with cuisine in San Diego or LA. They're both incredibly good places to eat. I will say I like the weather in LA more because it's just hotter. I like heat, and I think sometimes like it, that those 7:05 first pitches at Petco, it's not as cold as San Francisco, but there are days there you forget that you think Southern California and it's always going to be hot. Not at game time.
June gloom rolls in. It gets chilly, a little windy at night. Yeah, that's where the fly balls would go to die, dude.
Yeah.
That's my only issue with Oracle Park. I think it's probably, if you're just looking at it from the outside in, probably the most beautiful park, maybe next to PNC.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's cold as shit down there.
Hey, speaking of that stadium in San Fran, isn't it funny how every day in the 7th inning, it doesn't matter what time the game starts, the Seagulls know. They're like watching it's the 7th, boys, let's go.
Yep.
There they are in the outfield.
They must hate extra innings because they're just waiting to dive bomb the stadium to eat all of the food, all of the garlic fries that are left at Oracle Park. Yeah, that's top 3 park for me, Oracle, but I hate reporting from there because I'm always in a parka because I'm constantly freezing in San Francisco.
What about Oakland? You're hidden in like a little cubby. You can't even see the game. You have like a little screen to watch.
I know. And well, the foul territory is so huge there. And there's like the dugouts. You might as well be on the warning track. I didn't have to go to Oakland a ton because we only played the AL West a few times where we actually would travel to Oakland just based on schedule. Oakland, they need to just start over, but
blow it up.
Yeah, blow it up, start over.
That leads me to my next question. Better ballpark, Petco Park, Dodger Stadium. We'll start with you, Alanna.
I mean, Dodger Stadium is so historic, and and Janet Marie Smith, the vice president of planning and development, has done such an amazing job of keeping the historic feel of the park, since it opened in '62, to keeping the feel, but also modernizing it for the current fan. And what people expect now, when no one just goes to a ballpark anymore to watch a baseball game. Like, it's like you need to be entertained constantly because of the world we live in. So Dodger Stadium it's just, it's the third oldest in the league. It's beautiful. It's historic. The San Gabriel Mountains. It has so many stories to tell in those walls, as does Fenway. As does the old Yankee, but Petco, I love the Western Metal Supply Company building. I love that the foul pole is in it. I love that it's in the gas lamp. I don't like Dodger Stadium in that you can't walk around it, and I hate getting in and out of it. Mm-hmm. So, from a historic perspective, Dodger, from a convenience and a let's go bar hopping after, Petco.
Yeah, and aesthetically speaking, Petco, but as a player, so San Diego is super chill to play there. But I like playing Dodger Stadium because there's nothing better than like a Friday night, Saturday night game at Dodger Stadium. And Alanna, you can like the batter's eye. It's the big black batter's eye in center is just all speakers. Mm-hmm. And like Jimmy, like J-Roll, like all these guys, Matt Kemp, like they're all coming up and the ground is just like under your feet. The first game I ever started professionally after I turned like 19, they moved me to third base and I was playing for the Padres, and they asked me, hey man, Doc, Dave Roberts was like the night before was like, hey, you're off tomorrow. I'd played a few in a row, and he gave me and Jay up the day off. He calls me at like 2 a.m. He's like, hey, Brooksy. I'm like, how are you this awake, bro? It's 2. And he's like, you know how upbeat Doc is. Yeah, and he's like, hey, can you play shortstop? And I'm like, I haven't played shortstop since high school, bro, but yes, I can. Sure, yeah. This is a Saturday night game in Dodger Stadium. And I just remember being a little nervous because it was different. I haven't played short. And at the time, it had been like 8 years probably. And I'm playing in Dodger Stadium, packed house, ground shaking. J-Roll hits the first pitch of the game, like a short hop, like laser beam at me. I just knock it down like off my chest, and I threw him out, made the play, and then I was fine after that. But I would the atmosphere at Dodger Stadium, and you can literally, and I keep harping on this, the way you can feel the music on the field there and the crowd, because they're like on top of you, made it one of my favorite places to play on the road. So I'm going to go with Dodger Stadium.
Too much Dodgers bias for one podcast. I'm going to go with Petco personally, but I have been to both. Both are fantastic. I think personally, Petco's my favorite. 1, because of weather. 2, because of food. 3, for better or for worse, there's not always a packed house at Petco Park, so it's comfortable, which is why I kind of like Oakland too, by the way.
So you enjoyed them not having success. Okay.
For a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Last one. Who's got the better of beaches? Los Angeles, San Diego. We'll start with Alanna.
I don't know. I talk about living in Manhattan Beach and never going to the beach. It's like people that live in New York never go to the Statue of Liberty, or if you're from Arizona, you've never been to the Grand Canyon. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a beach frequenter person. I think I've been to a beach in California 4 times. So I'm not the one to ask on that.
I've never been to the beach in LA. I have been to the beach many times in San Diego. Ocean Beach, one of my favorite spots. And it's just more like the surrounding area. The beach is beautiful. It's great. There's like tons of people surfing and fishing off the pier. But the surrounding area where you can just park and spend the day there and just walk around all the restaurants, go back to the beach, go to a restaurant, just hop back and forth. That was cool. Just that vibe there. So I have to go San Diego.
Not Pacific Beach,
That's
huh?
Fair.
I like that too. Pacific Beach had a dog beach
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
that we used to take Bo, my dog, to when he was a puppy. And one time he ran away. Bro, he hauled it through the parking lot. I'm chasing him like close to a mile. And finally somebody picked him up. They're like, oh, that guy's chasing his dog. Maybe we should stop it. Nah. It was wild. So that kind of ruined the dog beach for me because we never went back.
Yeah.
Now Jenny just takes you there to play, right?
Jenny doesn't take me many places anymore because we have kids.
Mm.
All right. It's about them now.
Mhm.
All right. Last question for you both. Who's winning the series? We'll start with you, Alanna.
Dodgers.
2 out of 3 Dodgers.
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3.
Yeah, I agree. That was easy. Look at us.
I want to go against you guys just because I'm rooting for the Padres this year because I want my prediction to come true. But Ryan Weathers going game 1. It's tough. The pitching matchups I'm really, really looking forward to. Alanna Rizzo, can you tell me a little bit more about what you do for MLB Network and with Chris Russo?
Yes. So I'm a contributor on High Heat. I do whatever Chris tells me. No, I'm kidding. It's just an interesting dynamic, right? Because he is a guy that's been known in the world of radio forever, and now TV for the last 8 years. So I do the Rizzo Report, and we just talk about baseball. And he's a very opinionated guy, but I have to say he's been incredibly gracious and welcoming to me. He has this persona on the air and people are like, oh my God, but he actually is such a kind human. So I do the Rizzo Report. We talk baseball. I'm hoping to bring a lot more interviews to the show just because of my relationships with players over the course of, being a reporter for 15 years. I have more of a reporting background than anything. So, we've done about 10 shows together so far, just kind of making our way through it. It's by and large, it's his show. I'm just a contributor on it. When I decided to leave the Dodgers, it was very tough. I didn't want to. I love that job. They were unbelievable to me, but my fiance lives on the East Coast. I was on the West Coast. It just didn't jive anymore. So I'm very grateful that I can still be covering the game I love more than anything and do it at home. So I know how fortunate I am, and I'm just thankful that MLB made the mistake of hiring me twice, and that I'm back on the network with them.
When's the wedding?
I don't know. Ask COVID. Like, that's a great question. I don't know. We got engaged November of 19, and I don't know.
Just stay engaged.
At some point,
forever.
Yeah, forever. Remember, I know your wife. I know her very well. Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. At some point, we'll get married. I already feel married, so it's like whatever.
Right.
Well,
you're killing it. You're killing it, and we appreciate you blessing us with your presence.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
It's my pleasure anytime, and thanks for having me. Continued success. Danny, nice to finally meet you. Will, it's good to see you. And tell Jenny I said hi.
I will. See you later.